What do you want now, kitty? You want greenies, don't you? Don't whap me with your tail in the face. Just leaving her there. Okay, anyways, welcome back, my little nightmares, me Queen Nightmare. And you may be wondering, why haven't I been posting? I'll tell you why. School has literally, what was that move that happens in Super Mario Brothers? Anyways, this monster drags you across the concrete, your character. That's what I feel like right now. That's what I feel like, what's happening to me? What are you looking at? Stop playing with things. Shame on you. I'm having a cry. I have a little baby with me. That's what she acts like, too. Okay. Anyways, I didn't get any of the scholarships. I'm sorry. What else would happen? Oh, I got some tassels to wear during graduation for being an avid. Oh, what else happened? I gave a speech and I literally blubbered through my speech and I didn't notice I was going to blubber. So, I'm kind of embarrassed. And, but a lot of people liked my speech. That works, right? I don't know what I'm doing. Okay. We're starting on the second to last chapter of, the Snarry series. Now, what do you have? What's my hair thing? Don't eat it. As you can see, I'm cat sitting. No, I'm not. It's just my regular cat being a doofus. Okay. Chapter 30. Harry drifted up from sleep slowly. As his senses took over from his dreams, he was first aware of Severus's slow breathing not far from him. The feeling of contentment he had been enjoying slipped quickly into excitement as his memories of last night returned. The last thing he remembered of the evening was falling asleep with an arm draped across Severus's bare chest. At some point during the evening, both of them must have shifted. Harry to one side of the bed and Severus to the other. Grabbing his wand and glasses from I had to itch my ear. From the table beside him, he pulled the covers over his head and cast Lumius to check the time on his watch. He wanted nothing more than to curl up next to Severus, but prudence won. He, sitting up slowly to avoid waking up the other man, Harry slipped out of bed, grabbing his pile of clothes along the way, and stepped quietly through the doorway into the living area. After dressing in the dark, he cast another light spell in order to leave a short note. Woke up at 4:30. He wrote, "Thought it best to get back before everyone wakes up. See you later and tonight, I hope." He struggled with how to sign it. Love, Harry. Didn't feel right. He'd never said it to the man. It felt wrong signing it such a simple note. And did he love Severus? Just Harry seemed silly. Who else would have written it? In the end, he left it unsigned. It would not be much of a mystery anyway. Checking the map he had retrieved from Severus, Harry noted that the castle had not yet stirred from morning. He took his time getting back to Gryffindor Tower. The question of love flitted through his mind, despite the time he had spent thinking about what Severus meant to him. Harry had not really thought about it in terms of love. He worried he had too little to compare it to. This was not how he felt about Ron or Hermione or even Sirius. S names, my dude. I can't do it. But that was hardly a surprise. He had certainly never thought of doing with Ron or Sirius what he just did with Severus. Yikes! That thought made his mind turn to the memories of the past evening. He was surprised and pleased at how quickly he had gotten past his own uncertainty and hesitation. Severus had been gentle and caring, but that was no surprise to Harry. But he had been worried that everything would be awkward the first time. It had been at first. Trusting Severus completely, though, Harry had felt bold enough to take some initiative and knew that as great as it had been, it would only get better. Back in the tower, Harry slipped quietly into bed. He had become an expert of sneaking back into his own room. His roommates wouldn't know he had been out late, but he doubted any of them would realize just how late at night, or early in the morning, it was when he returned. Sleep escaped him, though. His night with Severus was not the only thing on his mind, and the situation with Dean still troubled him. Once Harry had been able to shed some light on the nature of the magic on Dean, Dumbledore had succeeded on dispelling it. At least it was removed as far as anyone could tell. But it was clear that Voldemort would try again. Harry knew Dumbledore and the teachers were worried about the possibility that outside of the headmaster's office the spell would work. Hestia Jones had suggested a complete ban on anyone leaving or entering Hogwarts in order to prevent Voldemort from getting the spell on someone else. But that was a temporary solution at best. They could not reasonably keep up the restrictions past the end of the term. Either Voldemort would quietly abduct another student, or some misguided would-be Death Eater would volunteer. In fact, Harry suspected that those followers of Voldemort's with children in Hogwarts were vying for the chance to offer their son or daughter up as a sacrifice. That what little time he had was running out. He did not even have a clear plan on what he would do if Voldemort managed to focus on confrontation. A piece was still missing. His thoughts chased each other until finally the sun stepped over the windowsill and his roommates began to stir. "You're back then," Seamus called to Harry as he got out of bed, giving him a knowing look. "Spent a night under the orange belt in the astronomy tower?" Harry turned quickly to retrieve his robes, hiding the blush he knew was rising up to his cheeks, and called over his shoulder, "Why, are you jealous? Or, I'm saying the constellation wrong, and I hate it. Orion, there we go. I was saying Oron, and it's not true. Orion. Orions get enough keeping that belt up to get around. I can introduce you if you'd like." "Ha ha, he wishes," Seamus said before heading out to breakfast. Harry noticed Ron sticking back hurriedly started dressing. The two walked to breakfast in silence. Ron seemed, well, not annoyed, but preoccupied as well as tired. He yawned 4 times before they had descended from the tower, and Harry had too much filling his mind to feel and need to fill the silence. During the meal, Professor McGonagall came to the table to tell the students that Dean Thomas had been transferred to St. Mongoose. He assured them that he was recovering but was still under observation. Harry took that to mean that they believed the spell had been completely removed, but were still not ready to risk him returning. He supposed that was better than nothing. Once they were done eating, that was my cat or something over there. Could be a monster. We never know. Once they were done eating, there we go. I was like, what is that sentence? Ron rose quickly and looked over to the staff table. "Go ahead to class without me," he said to no one in particular. "I need to talk." Wait, who? Ron! No! Please, Ron, don't ruin this! Baby boy. Freckled face baby. Come on, stop. No. Oh, I can think it's Freckles right now. I don't know why. Ron rose quickly and looked over to the staff table. "Go ahead to class without me," he said, and to no one in particular. "I need to talk to Professor Snake about Snake. Severus Snake. No, it's Dumbledore. No, it's Snape. Sorry. I need to talk to Snape about something." Without even a glance at Harry, Ron approached the potion master, who had already started to leave the room. Later that day, Harry used the anonymity granted by the hallway, filled with chattering students, to bring up Ron's conference with Severus. What did you talk about to Professor Snape about? That sentence just ruined me. I was like, what? Also, I have a prediction. It's either the people who's going to be next possessed by Voldemort. It's either going to be Ron. It's not going to be Hermione. Ron, Neville, Luna, or Ginny. Which one are you going to think? I'm leaning more towards Neville because everyone likes Neville and Neville's being so good. And I think Voldemort's gonna ruin that. I think it's Neville, but it might be Ginny. Neville or Ginny for me, not Ron. But I think he's the a red herring, if you ever, yeah. Harry asked, trying to sound nonchalant, guessing he was failing at it. Hermione leaned over curiously as he asked, letting him know that she, too, was out of the loop. "Oh, nothing much," Ron said cheerfully. The volume in his voice lowered, but the tone remained the same as he continued. "Just one of those chats a man has to have with his best friend's guy." No! Don't... He probably went up to him and said, I'm kind of on the fence about this relationship, but if you break his heart, I break you. Pretty much what he's going to probably say. Harry suddenly regretted bringing it up in the hallway, since he knew he could not risk asking for more details. His mind raced. Did Ron know what happened between them? Had he threatened Severus? Harry knew Ron would not accuse Severus of anything, but he could definitely imagine Ron warning the potions master of what would happen if he hurt Harry. It sounded like typical Ron behavior, in fact. How long had Severus laughed at that? Same. Ugh. Don't worry, Harry said, slapping Harry on the back. Well, Ron said as he slapped Harry on the back. No, it's nothing bad. We're in complete agreement on this, it turns out. I'm sure he'll fill you in later. Bad idea to discuss it here, though. Ron grinned at him, knowing it would drive him crazy until he knew he saw Severus alone tonight. Entering Severus's room behind him, Harry dropped his cloak the instant the door reformed. He stepped up to Severus without a word, went for the man's lips. With his mouth preoccupied, his hands began working the buttons of the man's robe. Okay, first of all, honey, I know you did it, like, the night before, but you need to calm down. Take it slow. Yes, you did it before, but do you need to do it every night? Because then it gets old, and then you become like a regular couple, married couple, which is they don't touch each other at all sometimes. If you ever see the movies and stuff, it's like, we don't even talk anymore, do we? Nope, we don't. Now that he knew that what they both wanted, Harry had no trouble initiating things. Later, once both their hands had been their needs had been satisfied. Oh my gosh. Severus had to know. Why did I say that? Frig. Yikes. Okay. I'm gonna need some anime bleach after this. Okay. It's not that I imagined it, it's just that one sentence I did not want to say, and it was not the end of the sentence either. Later, once both their needs had been satisfied, Severus had announced the evening far too young for them to both to remain in bed. Oh my gosh, they actually completed it? So they both dressed again and took their familiar positions on his couch. Weasley and I had a chat earlier today about your visits with me, Severus said after a few moments. Despite what Ron had said about an agreement, Harry braced for the worst. He was glad Severus had at least waited before bringing it up. Oh, Merlin, Harry said. What did he do? Severus grinned at his obvious discomfort and continued. It would appear that your late return last night caused your friend some concern, and he does not approve. He didn't call you anything really bad, did he? Harry asked. He remembered that Ron had what Ron had said a few weeks ago about he would never think anything was good enough for Harry. On the contrary, he conducted himself quite well. I was impressed, and I agreed with him. Harry eyed Severus skeptically. Agreed with him about what? I agreed with Weasley that you have not been keeping your promise to him to be safe in the hallway. Given that what happened with Mr. Thomas, the assumption that Hogwarts cannot be compromised is foolhardy. Harry started to protest. He thought he had made it clear that no amount of danger had let anyone take what he and Severus had away from them. But before he could get a word in, though, Severus pressed 2 fingers against his lips, stopping him from speaking. As Mr. Weasley pointed out, when you follow me from Professor Potion's classroom, he and Miss Granger know where you are going. I am escorting you. However, since you do not always return to the tower at the same time, he has no idea when to expect you to return. Severus shifted, discomfort showing on his face as he continued. And I have assumed so far that when you leave my rooms, you successfully find the tower. If you did not have your cloak and the map, I might have worried more. But it always seemed reasonable that you were safe. May I see your bracelet?" Harry nodded and tugged it free. It enlarged just enough for him to slip it off. Severus accepted it, holding it in his open palm while quietly reciting a spell over it. "Tap it with your wand," Severus said. "Curious." Harry obeyed, no longer quite as worried that there was another plan afoot to separate them. Severus continued casting spells, then spoke again. "Now with your other wand." Again, Harry obliged. The older man handed the bracelet back to Harry before pulling off his own rings, restarting the process. This time, however, he tapped the ring with his own wand rather than having Harry do it. Slipping the ring on, Severus touched his wand to the ring, and Harry felt his bracelet respond. Rather than the tingling, however, Harry felt a pleasant warmth spreading along his arm. "Touch the bracelet with your wand and activate it the same way you have before," Severus instructed. Harry tried it and felt nothing, but Severus nodded satisfied. "There. When you return to the tower tonight, and any other night, you will let me know you are safe. If I ever need to send you the same message, I will do so." "That's brilliant," Harry said, smiling broadly. Then I can't mistake it for an emergency." "Exactly," Severus said, settling back down and pulling Harry against him. "Mr. Weasley indicated he would be satisfied knowing that I'm responsible for you when you're returning to the tower." "He said that?" Harry sat up and looked at Severus surprised. "Yes, when I told him what I had planned, he said that would be fine. He will be able to sleep knowing that you are at least accounted for, knowing between here and there. The only other option would be for him to come fetch you, which he probably would do." Severus snorted. "Huh," was all Harry said. He was surprised and quite pleased to find that Ron trusted Severus as so much that with Harry's safety. "I must admit, I was impressed. It's no secret he sees himself as your protector, but at the same time, I think he wanted to let you have your privacy. It cost him something, I think, to let you have this to your own." Harry returned to his place against Severus's chest. "I don't deserve such good friends." "You deserve smarter friends," Severus corrected. "But no, you deserve the friends you have." "I hope it was okay that I left last night. I guess you saw the note. I didn't want to bother you." "You're never a bother," Severus replied, running his fingers along Harry's temple. The note was welcome. Though waking up alone after one's first time with someone can cause worries. "Well, my love, I love 'em and leave 'em days." What? "Love 'em and leave 'em days are behind me." "My love 'em and leave 'em days are behind me," Harry said playfully. "Sorry, but you're not a one-night stand." If you knew any better, you'd don't," Harry said softly. I know you'll say you're kidding, but sometimes it sounds like you believe it when you talk like that. So please don't. You said it yourself. I know your crimes. No one knows better than I do, and I'm staying. So be it, Severus replied. An hour later, Harry was still on Severus's couch, but was now working on his charms essay. Severus was in his workroom preparing ingredients for when Salazar's face appeared in the wall. It took a moment to glare at Harry for no particular reason, before shouting, Snape! The bushy Gryffindor is looking for you. Bring your catamite. Severus appeared at the doorway to his workroom almost instantly, his wand drawn and pointed at the wall. Use the word again, and I'll see you ground into dust. Do you understand me? His voice was flat and as deadly serious as Harry had ever heard it. The face sunk back into the wall in response. After taking a moment to compose himself, Severus suggested to Harry that they report to the headmaster's office. Speechless, Harry nodded and then left, but not before Severus gave Harry's hand a comforting squeeze. He had not known what to say about the bust's words, about judging by the look of Severus's face. Bringing it up would be a bad idea anyway. In the headmaster's office, Harry and Severus found Hermione, Flitwick, and McGonagall. Waiting for them along with Dumbledore. Whatever was going on, Harry assumed it had something to do with Mark. When he stepped into the room, Harry could see that Hermione's eyes and nose were red and swollen. Oh, Harry! Hermione jumped up from her seat and wrapped her arms around him. I'm so sorry, she started crying again. And Harry put her arms around her gingerly. A feeling of terror came over him. The professor looked uncomfortable, but by no means as distressed as his friend. What exactly is going on here? Severus demanded. What's got the girl in hysterics? Miss Granger, that will do, McGonagall said, seeing Harry's distress and trying to get Hermione off of him. No one is in immediate danger, I assure you, both. McGonagall got Hermione back into her chair, and she had stopped crying again, but was still visibly upset. Or rather, Miss Granger, to be precise, had discovered something in the ruins we had missed earlier, Flitwick said, stepping over to the table to retrieve a paper. This here, he continued, showing the paper to both Harry and Severus. We thought it was another standard binding ruin, one of the older ones. Miss Granger reviewed our notes of the markings and quite correctly realized we were mistaken. These lines are formed much later, so they're not really a part of it. As interesting as this is, Severus said, please get to the point. Neither Mr. Potter nor I are experts in ruins. Whatever is obvious to you is not obvious to us. Yes, my apologies. Of course, this ruin is actually used as part of a set of 2 or more. They equalize energy in physically separated systems. Seeing the blank look in Harry's eyes, Flitwick grabbed 2 candles from the table and using his wand etched a rune into each. He put one back on the table and kept the other. Watch the one on the table. When I try to blow out this candle. Facing away from the table, he blew lightly at the candle in his hand, and Harry noticed that the one on the table dimmed. He blew a second time, harder, and that both flames nearly died out, before flickering back to life. A third puff, much more powerful, and both extinguished. The ruin is commonly known and commonly used on candles. The ones in the Great Hall all have these. It creates a web of energy, so if one candle is caught in a draft, the excess heat from the rest will keep it from extinguishing. It would take a wand great enough to blow them all out to overcome it. The ruin here, Flitwick said, tapping to the paper, works differently. Of course, Miss Granger figured that out too. It's slightly different in how it's formed, but very different in how it works. They only work in one direction, Severus supplied, his voice steady and unreadable. Flitwick looked up at him, surprised. That's right. Naturally, the Dark Lord would not allow his own power to be pulled from him just to protect an underling. And would killed enough to know they're not all linked to each other. So, just to him then. The truth sank into Harry's mind. Hermione grabbed his hand as the full realization hit him. I'm so sorry, Harry. When I realized what that ruin was, I wanted to be wrong. I never wanted to be so wrong in my life. I know, Hermione. It's not your fault. And I'm glad you figured it out. Imagine if you hadn't. He left the rest unsaid. We know whose fault all this is. I've never felt this terrible. She glanced up at Severus, sorrow still in her eyes. Thank you, Miss Granger, for all of your help on this, Severus said to her. You've done more than anyone but Harry to free me from this. I do appreciate it. Ah! A bird smacked into the window. Oh, that was scary. Whew. Oh, man. Ugh. Hermione could only nod in response. We have worked out a few specific details, Dumbledore said, before the tone of the room could turn even more morose. It would appear that the restrictions on the ruins used in the markings make them far less efficient than in the demonstration we had in Professor Flitwick. The Dark Lord could not draw on his Death Eaters to replenish his energy in a battle. It does, however, explain how he stayed alive after his last defeat. To use the candle as a metaphor, the ruins draw off enough energy to keep an ember alive, but not much more. But it still means he can't die if even a single person from the Dark Mark is alive, Harry said, more as a statement than a question. That would appear to be correct, yes. Dumbledore replied with sorrow in his voice. Minerva, would you see that Miss Granger gets back to the tower? Yeah, of course, Headmaster. Thank you, and you are excused for the evening as well. Thank you, and you are excused for the evening as well, Phyllis. Flitwick nodded in response and followed the two women out, leaving Harry and Severus alone with the headmaster. Dumbledore gestured to the two chairs and settled into a third. Seeing Severus take his seat, Harry followed. He had no energy to fight the headmaster alone, even with just words. Everything had just changed, even more so than when they had found out that removing the mark could kill Severus, and that had not mattered when they believed that they could kill Voldemort without Severus dying. I am sorry to hear this news. If you had any idea that the mark was so complicated as it was, I would have shared my fears with you, Severus. I know that, Albus. I know that you are trying to save as many people as you can. Thank you, Severus, Dumbledore said. Dumb as a door. Sorry, I remember that. And even if you don't watch Alex Myers, he does some movies. He called Dumbledore dumb as a door too. So, Harry, I hope you will believe me when I say that if I thought there was anything I could do, I would. I still do not approve of this relationship. Harry looked up, not wanting to argue, but feeling like he had to speak up. But the headmaster kept talking. But I have never wanted anything but the best for you, and for Severus too. This is what's best for us, Harry replied. Severus took his hand in his and said softly, Let it go, Harry. Accept what he's offering for now. Seeing that Severus was right, Harry nodded. Sorry, Headmaster. Dumbledore nodded to Harry. What I want both of you to know is this. Even for this unfortunate revelation, I have not given up hope. The Dark Lord is powerful, but he is neither omnipotent nor omniscient. Sorry. I mess those up so often in church and in life. It works. He has accounted for every contingency he could foresee, but not even he cannot see the future with crystal vision. There is something he has overlooked. We shall find it. Harry did not feel very confident of that, but responded with his thanks anyway. Severus did the same, and the pair left together. When they arrived at the passageway to the dungeons, Harry softly said. Maybe you should just go back to the tower now. I know if I go back with you, I won't be able to leave you in the middle of the night. Severus lifted his hand as if to reach for Harry, but he stopped himself. Though no one was in the hallway except them, he was always careful. If you wish, he said. What do you wish? Harry said, noting an unexpected waver in Severus's voice. A silence stretched on as Severus stood perfectly still. Before Harry. Finally, his voice barely audible, even to Harry. Severus replied, I want to be near you tonight. Harry knew how hard it was for Severus to ask for help, especially the kind of help he was asking for now. Can I go tell Ron to cover for me in the morning? I have my cloak and my map, and I'll come right back down. Or you can wait here. Or I can just come with you and let Ron figure it out. No, go tell Weasley whatever you need to tell him. I'll be waiting in my rooms. Silently, Severus faded into the dim passageway. Harry hurried to the tower. There were a few students still awake in the common room, but Ron was already in their room. Harry and Hermione told me about. He glanced at the door and glared in frustration. Hermione told me about. He glanced at the door and glared in frustration. About what she found out. I'm really sorry, mate. Really. Yeah. Was all Harry could muster to say in response. Is she okay? She was washing up. I was about to see if she wanted to talk some more. She feels guilty because she figured it out. I know it's silly, but I guess I understand. Let her know we both appreciate everything she's done. I already said it to her, but as bad as it is now, as knowing now, it would be a lot worse to find out later. Harry felt guilty not going to find Hermione, but he knew Ron would stay with her if she needed it. Severus would be alone if Harry stayed. He told Ron where he was going, and Ron agreed to make up something if anyone noticed he was wasn't around in the morning. Harry also told him about Severus's answer to this midnight runs between the dungeon and the tower. Ron said it sounded perfect, even though they wouldn't and need it that night. When he returned to the dungeon, Harry was surprised to find the bust of Salazar was gone. Tapping the stone was that served as Severus's doorbell. Harry wondered if Severus had followed through on his threats from earlier. Sorry, his response is kind of funny. Salazar is kind of like a have you ever seen Shaun of the Dead? He's like the father of Shaun of the Dead. He's always disappointed. He's like, I wasn't gonna. Don't get those cheap mums for Mother's Day. Wasn't gonna. Okay. No more Salazar? Harry asked once the archway appeared. He started to lecture me on appropriate relationships, and I was not in the mood. He has been relocated to an unused hallway facing the corner with a sack over him. I mean, how old is Salazar anyway? I mean, how long ago was he alive? He probably doesn't understand the relationship. You want greenies, don't ya? Huh? Okay, you did your trick. Now I gotta give you your greenies. I gave you extra this time, so don't come crying to me. Okay. He started to lecture me. Oh, yeah. Harry laughed, given everything that had happened since. He had not given much thought to being Severus's catamite. Catamite. What is catamite? Hold on, research time. I looked it up. And definition is, it's a noun. From where, though? 16th century, so no shit. Okay, so, a boy kept for homosexual practices. From Greek, so, what the heck? How rude! They did more than that. Then again, he's probably like, are you sure? No, I'm not, so, He had not given much thought to being called Severus's catamite. He knew it would have bothered Severus more than himself, though. The man who built the Chamber of Secrets, giving a lecture on appropriate behavior, that's ironic. Yes, well, Severus replied dryly. It seems Salazar Slytherin harbors some prejudices. Pride and Prejudice. Who's going to be the Pride one? Probably going to be... Who's the Gryffindor guy? I don't know what his first name is, but I know it's... Well, last name is Gryffindor. Whatever. Hard to believe that, Harry said, taking his place on the couch. Indeed. I suspect we know who told Albus about us. Albus about us. Now, I will not be spied upon, nor will I allow him to make you feel unsafe down here. So he is disposed of. Severus sat down next to him. Wait, what did other people think of? Adromios. Me too. I always had a feeling it was that darn Salazar bust. Yeah. Same though. Yeah, I don't understand why he's so prejudiced against it. Severus sat down next to him. You know, Harry, what we found out, it changes nothing. I think it changes everything, actually. Harry held a hand before the man could protest. It's not what you think. I'm not giving up. I just think that the headmaster is right about this. There's something we're overlooking. Something Voldemort overlooked, too. There has to be. You're planning something? Severus's voice turned suspicious. No, not really. There's definitely no plan yet, but I feel like all the pieces are in front of us, and I just haven't put them together yet. And when you do put them together, Harry knew where Severus was going. It reminded him of something Severus had said back during the summer, about Harry not relying on his friends enough and running off alone. No secret, Severus. Not from you, at least, and not from Ron or Hermione, or even the rest of the Order, unless you think it's for the best. I promise. Not much later, they both slipped into... My goodness! You guys are like newlyweds. What the hell? Oh my gosh. They both slipped into Severus's bed with neither one needing or wanting more than the other's presence beside them in the darkness. The next day, like most of the term, Harry reflected. Went by, and the next term the most of the term went by with Harry paying little attention to class. He suspected his professors noticed, but he didn't. They let him get away with it by not calling on him. Everyone knew the kinds of things that were on his mind, and few could fault him for not paying attention to classwork. By the end of dinner, though, Harry's thoughts had solidified, not so much into a plan as a theory, though. He thought he had a plan, but it was based on a lot of assumptions. He knew he needed to get other people's opinion. When Dumbledore rose to return to his office after eating, Harry hopped off his bench, hurried to catch him. Headmaster, is it possible to call a meeting of the Order tonight? I have some ideas. Dumbledore looked at him carefully. What kind of ideas? It's too much to talk about here, sir. I think I know what Voldemort's overlooked, and how we can use it. But I'm not sure it'll work. It's too dangerous to try on my own. Dumbledore looked surprised at that admission, but nodded. I can see who is available to meet. As you know, we never call the entire Order together unless the need is dire. Harry nodded. Yes, sir. If you get Tonks and Moody, that would be great. I know they might be busy, though. Shacklebolt, too? And the Weasleys? Harry thought about it and shook his head. I don't think they'd be helpful, sir. It's not that they are not good wizards, but if I'm right, there's a chance I'll be in danger. And I don't think they'd accept that possibility. Very well. I'll contact the three you named. Professor Snape will be joining us, yes? Of course, Harry responded, trying not to sound too defensive. Severus would not like him to be being in danger, but if he was right, he thought he could convince Severus that it was worth the risk. I'd also like Ron and Hermione there, Ginny, Neville, and Luna, too. They all know as much as I do about this, and Professor Jones as well. Oh, and Professor McGonagall and Flitwick, too. That's quite a list, Harry. And I'm willing to trust you. If this is what it takes to get you to share your plans before you act, I'm willing to play along. Yeah, he does that way too many times. How many books are there? How many movies? I think every single movie he does something without going to the group first, unless it's the last movie or the second to last movie. An hour later, nearly everyone was crowded into Dumbledore's study. Remus was attending to something covert and could not be contacted, but Shacklebolt had arrived in his place. Well, Dumbledore said, gathering everyone's attention, cueing, not cueing. Spelling, they write great stories, but the problem is the spelling part. Cueing the quiet conversations going on around them. Mr. Potter has called this meeting. Would you like to begin? He nodded to Harry, who stood up when his name was mentioned. Thank you, Headmaster. First, does everyone here know what we've found out about the Dark Mark, including what Hermione discovered? Hermione looked less uncomfortable, but about her part in the discovery. Harry, having thought about it, was actually was actually relieved at the revelation she had come to. Dumbledore indicated that they all had, so Harry continued. Then let me tell you what I'm thinking. But first, I want to make some assumptions. I believe the prophecy, and if someone wanted to, they could argue that me defeating Voldemort is possible. They would violate the prophecy. I'd die, he'd live. But there are thousands of wizards of whom that is true. So I think that there would be some big prophecy just to say I'm going to die like a thousand other people. Harry looked around and saw everyone seemed to agree. He knew everyone thought he was capable of defeating Voldemort, but he was building up a case on which everything relied on the prophecy being real. I've thought a lot about the last set of ruins Hermione found. If they work the way everyone says they do, then I can't beat him in battle. He held up a hand to quiet everyone as several people, mostly his classmates, started to argue. There's no way. Even if I was willing to let everyone marked die in the process, it's just impossible. I'd have to get him to near death, then continue to cast spells at him until every Death Eater in the world was drained completely. I can't do that. I doubt everyone in this room could do that. He certainly called for help. Well before it got that far, and then we'd have to fight off whoever came to rescue him, all while keeping Voldemort from escaping. It can't be done, and we can't just go kill all the Death Eaters until he's got no one left. For one thing, he'll mark more. Plus, we don't know who they all are, especially if he's marking wizards on the continuant now. Secretly, that was what had given Harry hope. If Voldemort could be destroyed, it meant that the mark could be removed. That was the only way it was possible. Okay, Harry, Tonks said. I think you've made your case. So what do you have in mind? I was thinking about something the headmaster said last night. There must be something Voldemort overlooked. Something he hadn't planned for. It has to be this. He pushed his bangs back to display a scar. We know it's like the mark, but different. And everyone agrees that it works in ways he never allowed if he was able to control it. The way to defeat him has to be something to do with it. Because that's the only thing that makes it different. Makes me different. Harry could see Severus's eyes narrowing with suspicion as he continued. He knew Severus would not like what he had to say, but he hoped he could get the man to see that it was the only way. 2 more assumptions, then. There's a time limit. We don't know what it is, but the prophecy says one can't live unless the other dies. So even if I tried to sit here in the headmaster's office, protected by all these wards, there's no way I'll live to 100 while Voldemort is still out there. It's one or the other. and there probably isn't much time before the prophecy is fulfilled one way or the other. I'm in no rush, but I don't think we can afford to wait a lot longer. Especially since Hogwarts isn't as safe as we thought. No one looked happy at that thought, but surprisingly, no one argued. He suspected everyone had thought something similar to their point. Anyway, especially after what happened with Dean. Finally, I'm in danger. It's that simple. Whatever it is that's going to defeat Voldemort, it'll put me in danger. We're not going to find a spell that I can cast will kill Voldemort. I'll need to be near him, and he'll probably know I'm there. He's too well protected for me to sneak up on him, and it's unlikely to be just one spell tossed at him and it's all over. Not to mention that there will be Death Eaters, Nagina, and I called her Nagina. Nagini. I'm trying to say the name right, but I can't think. I'm close to it the second time, but whatever. And who knows what else protecting him. I need everyone to accept that there's a chance I'll be hurt, even die, doing this. I guess I don't believe that I will die anymore. I'll do everything I can to put myself in as little danger as I can, but there's no way this happens without some risk to me. Can everyone accept that? Harry asked the group, but he was looking at Severus as he spoke. The older man's eyes were hard, his lips set in a straight line. Begrudgingly, agreement was muttered by everyone else, but Severus did not move to speak. He did not argue, though, nor did he leave, so Harry accepted that was good enough. The real test was coming. So what's the plan, Harry? Ron said, looking ready to fight for him already. It's not a plan yet, just an idea. An educated guess. But my scar links me to Voldemort in a way he still hasn't, Why did I think of that now? A way he still hasn't guessed. And if all the marks are connected, then I'm connected to all the Death Eaters as well. At least in a small way. I know it sounds crazy, but I think I need to take the dark mark. Are you fucking kidding me? Oh! I swore. I'm leaving house. I'm moving. No. I'm pissed off. No. 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 Hell no. 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 The rest of the evening had gone as roughly as Harry had expected. 12 against 1. Everyone had argued that Harry had gone mad, but he had given a lot of thought to his idea, and ultimately all objections came down to 2 points. It was too dangerous, and there was no proof it would succeed. But Harry countered that there would be no guarantees in any plan. The only plans that could possibly succeed were the ones that were impossible to test. Anyway, anything else Voldemort would have thought of. The complexity of the dark mark showed that all too well. as created, they exposed Voldemort to no risk. The scar alone, too, posed no physical risk to the Dark Lord. Early in the night, Shacklebolt had suggested using the scar's link to initiate a possession, but it had fallen flat. Dumbledore was fairly sure that the spells that linked Voldemort to his new body and protected Harry from Voldemort's using the scar to spy via Harry would also prevent possession via the known methods, and experimentation was too risky. The acknowledgement had started to swing the argument Harry's way. The Dark Lord still appeared unaware of the depth of the link between them. The experimentation linked the Dark Lord to protect himself further from it, but Harry did appear correct when he said that the scar link was the key. Best it remained a secret until they decided to strike. Harry, how exactly do you think your scar will save you, Harry? Tonks asked after some time. Harry struggled to explain. It seemed more intuition than anything else, a sense of how the link worked. It's like a back door, I suppose. A hole in the fence between my house and his. Harry ignored Severus's snort and continued. Hermione said it herself weeks ago. If I were marked and I cast the spell to unbind the ruins, it wouldn't be like I was trying to break into the binding, but out of it. As if Voldemort were removing the mark instead of an outsider. That should work. I said it might be like that, and it might work. But if it didn't, Harry, Hermione stared at him, her eyes pleading with him to reconsider. Hours later, nothing had been decided firmly. The meeting had ended, with Harry suggesting that they meet again to create some kind of plan based on his idea. He pointed out that since it appeared that Voldemort had some method to penetrate the school's defenses, they needed something to fall back on, should Harry and Voldemort come face to face. He was in fact, eager for someone to suggest a better idea, one with better chances. But since no one had, he insisted that they go with his for now. Through it all, Severus had hardly spoken, offering his opinion only when asked in the briefest terms. After Harry returned to the dungeons with Severus, the other man's silence worried him, and he braced himself for an argument when they were alone. Stepping through the archway, Harry pulled off his cloak and waited for it, but nothing came. Tea? Severus asked, sounding nothing but tired. No, Harry replied, watching the man as he sat on the couch. Severus nodded and stepping into the kitchen, he clinked the cleaning of dishes. Eventually, Harold, the potions master, back into the room. Well, Harry asked. He could not bear the silence. A part of him expected Severus to ask him to leave or not return. How could anyone be in a relationship with someone who at any moment would be facing his destiny with a plan that no one had any reason to believe would succeed? You've given this idea of yours a lot of thought, Severus replied. Harry nodded. And what do you think of it? Does it matter? Severus asked. Of course. You're the smartest person. You're one of the smartest people I know. If anyone knows more about the dark mark or the mark than me, it's you. And you're the most important person in the world to me. Of course I want to know what you think. I need you to support this plan. And if I don't? If I think that taking the dark mark would be the stupidest, most reckless idea you've had in a life full of stupidity, reckless ideas? Harry felt himself growing defensive. You have a better idea then? The man he challenged. No! Severus shouted, his teacup flying to the floor and shattering. Harry jolted as if struck. I don't have a better idea. My whole world balances of hope on the hope that the scheme might work. You have no reason to believe it will. No evidence whatsoever suggests we can use the mark against him. Success and him actively, scar or no. Still, so I'll be huddled in this hole, praying to gods I don't believe in, that you come back to me, because I can't be there with you. I don't have a damn thing to suggest as a better idea. Severus turned suddenly and stormed into his workroom. Harry sat on the couch, his hands shaking. The sound of the cauldrons thumping in onto the workbench came from the other room as Harry cast a cleaning spell to keep the tea from soaking into the rug. And trying to be quiet, Harry peered into the other room at Severus's back. Severus, Harry said, just loud enough for his voice to carry to the other man. The infirmary is short on a few things. Harry thought he heard a tremor in Severus's voice. Walking over to him, Harry put a hand on his shoulder, pressing his cheek to his back. I'm sorry, Severus. I would escape this if I could. Severus let his tools drop on the counter and turned around and wrapping his arms around Harry. No, you wouldn't. Prophecy or no prophecy, you'd fight against him. Unable to argue, Harry just nodded. 2 weeks passed uneventfully. Harry spent nearly every evening with Severus, of course, and dutifully signaling his return to the tower. As Harry had hoped, several contingency plans were made, most based on how to keep Harry alive long enough to do what needed to be done, and after as well. Severus had insisted on procedures to rescue Harry should his idea fail. It would put many of them in danger. But Harry found he could not argue. If his plan did not work, then he had... then if his plan did not work, then he would need to live long enough to try another. The odds of him having a second chance were slim, though, and Harry secretly assumed he would only have the one chance. One way or the other. Harry knew it would be soon. Exams were coming up, and once everyone left for the holiday, the Dark Lord was bound to find another victim for his spell. As he made his way with Ron and Hermione to Charms, Harry wondered whether it would be another incident like Dean or a volunteer. He knew it meant nothing to Voldemort to sacrifice a follower. But would he prefer to use someone closer to Harry just for the sake of hurting him more? Harry shook the morbid thoughts away, since ideas were coming more and more frequently lately, and he needed to have control over his own mind. Occlumency would play a key role in his plan. For now, all he could do was wait and try to prepare. The three students had just started in the Charms classroom when the screams started. Should I read the next chapter? Is that how it's going to go? Hold on. Ouch. Okay. Yeah, we can do this. Chapter 31. Harry, Ron, and Hermione leapt from their seats and ran to the door to the Charms classroom. Immediately, Neville took just a moment to appear beside them, wand drawn. Their reflexes had been honed in by months of training, and a part of each long to use their skills. The yelling was coming from outside the classroom, and the fear and panic was unmistakable. The four reached the main doors of the castle as a group of students came running through. Hermione tried to stop them for information, but Harry spotted Black Robe rushing from behind them and shouted to his friends. Ducking from behind the archway, Harry hit the lead Death Eater full in the chest with a blasting curse, sending the man cartwheeling back. Cartwheeling. Okay, I'm sorry. This is really... I'm imagining it, and I love it. Oh, man. A second wizard appeared, this one walking more cautiously. Harry tried another blasting curse, but the Death Eater blocked it. He returned fire with a curse of his own, but it was deflected before Harry had a chance to respond. Flitwick stood beside him. "I'll handle this, Mr. Potter. And you and the other students, go into the main hall. They'll have need for you if anyone enters the castle." "No," Harry replied, quickly taking a moment to throw a petrifying spell at the advancing wizard. The Death Eater blocked it easily, along with the Expelliarmus that quickly followed. "Everyone go with Flitwick to the main hall. Whoever's coming doesn't know it's more than just me here. If I surrender to him, he'll probably take me to Voldemort right away. The longer this goes on, the more this will look like a trap." "Are you sure about this, Mr. Potter?" Flitwick asked. His friends just watched him in silence. They had all promised that when the time came, they'd let him make this decision. "I am. Let them think I'm a coward, turning myself once I saw Hogwarts isn't safe. He's coming fast." Harry took a single potion from his belt and drank it with a single gulp, and handed the belt to Ron. The group left him alone, though Harry knew how hard it must have been for them. Thank Merlin Severus isn't here. Harry stepped into the doorway, arms held wide, his wand visible. "I'd like to speak to the Dark Lord," he called out to the Death Eaters before the other wizard had a chance to cast a blast on him. "Take me for a fool, boy," the Master Wizard called back. Harry recognized the voice from the many meetings he had spied upon through Voldemort's eyes. He could not associate a name. It did not matter anyway. Take my wand, then. But hurry, the teachers will be here soon. He was going to add that Voldemort probably wanted him alive, but the stupefy hit him square in the chest first. What did the two people say? I just spazzed out reading this. Honestly, same. My brain legit read that as spiky line. Yeah. Every time someone changes a point of view, they have like friggin' A, what did I call it? The stars. It's not a pound, it's the other one. I can't think of it right now. Asterisks. They have the asterisks that do it. And they said, I thought it was spazzing out. And I was like, yeah, kind of. After that, Severus took the stairs up from the potions classroom, 2 at a time. The Ravenclaw and Hufflepuff, third years, had been teaching were heading to the Great Hall as ordered. Severus' only thoughts were of Harry. He knew the Death Eaters would do so much damage as they could to the school and its students, but Harry was surely the target. Rounding the corner, he nearly collided with the Granger girl. I was going to call her Ginger. She's not Ginger. Harry, Severus asked, scanning the corridor behind for a sign of the boy. He noticed Weasley coming up behind, holding one of the potion belts. There was all the answers he needed. Harry asked to talk to you-know-who, Granger said. I don't know who, he asked. They're all wearing masks, but they're gone. Professor Flitwick and McGonagall are at the front door. They said more teachers were coming to help them. They sent us with everyone else to the Great Hall. Neville went there to find the headmaster, but we came here looking for you instead. It took all of his years of practice to control his fear and pushed it aside. There were still sounds of fighting, so the battle had not ended with Harry's disappearance. He took the belt from Weasley and strapped it around himself just higher than the one he had already wearing. Stay close to me. When Harry calls, you won't have much time. Remember your training, he said to them both. Jones and I have drilled as much into you as we can. Trust in that. The pair nodded, looking terrified and determined. Where did they come from? Granger replied. Who said that? Where did they come from? Granger replied that the first shouting had been from outside. He considered their move, and then a messenger sped to him. Death Eaters in the Owler, come, Severus ordered, breaking into a run, expecting the two to follow him. They were halfway to the stairs to follow him. The stairs to the tower when a blasting curse sent shards of the stone wall between him and the Weasley. Dunking into a niche in the wall, the three huddled close as another spell flew past. Go on, Granger said quickly, casting a spell blindly down the hall. I'll catch up. Keeping low, she peered down the hallway and let fly a string of hexes. A shouting curse suggested a hit, but another blasting curse crashed into a wall near them. Granger cast a shield spell and held it across the hallway. Severus grabbed Weasley's arm and started running. Wait! The boy yelled, "Hermione!" Severus yanked harder and looked back in time to see a spell bounce off the shield and crash into the wall. "She'll be fine, you idiot. You won't be if I have to drag you all the way to the Owler." They reached the staircase, and Severus did not slow his pace as he started climbing. We're not supposed to split up," Weasley argued. When we trained, Harry was there to be protected," Severus shouted back with a bitterness in his voice he had not anticipated. He stopped and turned to Weasley. "Plans change. One thing that has not. If you run into a Death Eater, it's kill or be killed. Do you understand?" Ron looked taken aback for a moment, then recovered, straightening his back and nodded. Footsteps from above caused them both to press against the wall. Severus considered their position, and there was little room to maneuver on the spiral staircase. There was nowhere to hide. That would not be exposed once the Death Eaters came closer. He pulled a large bottle from his potions belt and held it for Weasley to see, trusting him to recognize it. Ron responded by pulling out a small vial from his own belt, watching Severus identify as the antidote. Taking their own dose, Severus waited until the first booted foot came into view, and pitched it as far up the stairs as they could. It shattered against a wall, and within seconds, the first body came falling from above and crumpled into a heap just a few feet ahead of the pair. I'll finish up here," Severus said to Weasley. "Go back to Miss Granger and see if she still needs help. If not, I'll meet you up both at the bottom of the stairs." Whether he had some sense of what Severus planned, or wanted to be away from it, or he wanted to go help the girl, Severus did not know. Either way, he did not argue as he turned away, hurried down, and Severus listened carefully for the sounds of anyone who escaped the sleeping potion. It was lighter than air, and the tower had only a few small windows. He expected by now even the owls were asleep. Creeping up the stairs with his wand in one hand and his knife in the other, Severus came across a total of 6 Death Eaters. 4 he knew, and the 2 looked young enough to have been Drumstrongs. Drumstrongs. Is that how you say it? Whatever. He cleanly slit their throats. Well, damn. I didn't know it was going to get this graphic. He cleanly slit their throats and left their bodies piled in the Owler. Downstairs, he found Weasley, Granger waiting for him. She took out 3 Death Eaters in the hallway, Weasley boasted. Granger looked troubled, though, and Severus suspected she had been forced to kill at least one of them. "You were them, Granger," Severus said simply. He led them back into the great hall, where he knew Albus and whomever he had managed to call from the order would be waiting. Harry's plans notwithstanding, Albus and the faculty had been expecting an attack from the Death Eaters for years, and everyone knew their roles. In the hall, the students were seated along their tables, but facing on the benches to make a facing out on the benches to make a quick evacuation easier. Several wands were pointed at the group as Severus followed the two students in and pushed the door closed again. He noted Longbottom and the Weasley girl, wands among them. To his left, Lovegood sat at the edge of the Ravenclaw bench closest to the door, her wand also in hand. Severus expected Granger and Weasley to return to their house, but they stayed close to him as he strode down the center aisle to dais, where Albus stood. The rest of the faculty was spaced evenly along the walls between the house's tables. "The owler is secure," Severus told Albus. "I have sealed the hatch from below. Send someone with a strong stomach to clean up." He knew Albus would understand. "There are 3 more in the corridor south of the tower as well. Miss Granger dispatched them." Good work, Miss Granger," Albus said. Granger barely nodded in acknowledgement. "I believe the danger has passed, at least for now." "Headmaster?" Weasley spoke up. "How did they get in? Is Dean—" "Mr. Thomas is, to best of my knowledge, safe and sound in Ministry care. I'm afraid the attack began at Hagrid's hut. A griffin came in last night, favoring a leg. Hagrid was nursing it back to health." "A griffin?" Weasley asked. "Of course," Granger answered, looking more herself. "A spell that powerful would need something powerful to drain. A wizard or a magical creature." "Quite right," Albus said. Severus felt himself losing patience from the magic lesson. He knew he could do nothing until Harry called for him, but the knowledge that he could do nothing just made things that much harder. We'll need to find out how they made it into the Owler," Longbottom added, surprising Severus, who had not even noticed him approach. Albus dispatched Tonks to investigate, knowing she would do whatever it was needed to be done with the bodies in the tower as well. Moments after she left, Severus's arm began to tingle. "Ooh! Yes!" Sorry, that means he's communicating. Harry regained consciousness, sore from head to foot. He blinked, trying to get the world around him to focus before realizing that his glasses were missing. Fighting the urge to panic, Harry lifted his head off the stone and tried to get his bearings. The room he was in was lit, but was just barely. Ahead of him was a doorway, but he could make nothing out beyond it. Rising to his knees, he could see the magenta. Sorry, I can read. Magenta and gold blur of a carpet spread in front of him, and beyond what the outline of the dark table, he recognized where he was. He was in what he had come to refer to as Voldemort's study. It was where the Dark Lord spent most of his time, and Harry knew it all. With his wits returning, Harry quickly turned his thoughts away from those dangerous memories and concentrated on wondering where Voldemort was. He was in suspense. He was not in suspense for long. "Potter, Mr. Potter," Voldemort's voice hissed from behind him. I went through so much trouble breaching Hogwarts wards just to find you, wanting to come here all along. Harry spun around and made a show of searching his robe's pockets for his wand. What is a wizard without his wand, huh? The Dark Lord asked. Harry could see him holding something up. He assumed it was his wand. Voldemort whispered something too quietly for Harry to hear, and tapped his own wand against Harry's. Sparks flew, scorching. Sound sent chills down Harry's spine. The famous matching wand, Ollivander, will regret making a twin to my wand. But it no longer matters, does it? Harry could just make out Voldemort as both of the Dark Lord's hands wrapped around the wand. A soft snick, followed by the rattle of wood against the stone. Harry told Harry of the last moments of his wand. Despite of the self-control he was exercising, Harry could not hold back a small gasp. Now tell me, Mr. Potter, before I give you the death that is so long overdue, what exactly do you think you can offer me? I assume I wish to beg for your life. Harry brought all the occlumency training to bear as he responded. A trade. Voldemort laughed. The sound of it chilled Harry. And what can you offer that I can't simply take? Me. Not just my life. I'll take the dark mark. Harry forced the words out. He was terrified, and balancing his thoughts between what he needed to say and what he could not think about was nearly impossible. You have my curiosity, Mr. Potter. Congratulations. Few who beg for their life live long enough to hear me refuse, but do I give in exchange? And what do I get in exchange for seeing Harry Potter become a Death Eater? Snape, Harry responded. This has not been a part of the plan, but Harry had to improvise. He had something Voldemort would believe, even through legamancy. Remove the dark mark off from Snape, and put it on me. You assume I can remove it, Voldemort responded, and Harry panicked at the thought that their assumptions had been wrong. He had no time to dwell on it, though, as the attack on his mind came almost immediately. His mind filled with images of Snape, Dumbledore, his friends. He tried to block out as much as he could, but he let some of his feelings for Snape surface. The presence of his mind increased, became unbearable, and his shields nearly broke. In desperation, Harry threw his most cherished memories between himself and Voldemort. The night Severus had told him he was welcome to his rooms whenever he wanted, the first time Severus kissed him, the first night together. Then everything stopped. Touching. My dear Severus has convinced you that you love him in order to free himself. He always played his part well. No one knows the depths of his treachery as much as I. Voldemort made his way across the carpet to the single chair Harry knew was in the room. I, and only I, can remove the dark mark from one of my own, but he will die with my mark upon him. Despair filled Harry as Voldemort continued, as will you. Magical binding wrapped tightly around Harry as he was pulled closer to Voldemort. Is this turning into a hentai? When I thought of binding, I thought of tentacles. I'm sorry, I'm weird. But he said magical binding. Yeah, whatever. It worked then. At least the part that mattered did. Harry had the presence of mind to activate his bracelet. Just as he came within reach of the Dark Lord, the pain was exactly as bad as Harry remembered. For a brief moment, Harry realized that the limbless draught must be working. Hermione had pointed out that unlike a regular marking, Harry's had a chance of sending all of the pain of the spells back into Voldemort. Who would in turn send it back into Harry? Even Voldemort, who seemed to enjoy his victim's pain so much, would notice when the agony intensified as it looped over and over and over again through the mark and Harry's scar. That was why Harry had taken the pain potion just before surrendering to the Death Eater. Relief that the pain had worked only lasted a moment, though, before the pain blocked everything out. A kick in the chest brought Harry back to his senses. He had not lost consciousness entirely, but his arm burned as if on fire. Voldemort stood above him, and a second kick took him square in the face. He knew his nose was broken, but he could do nothing but call out in more pain. And you, my Mr. Potter, you finally die. I regret that I will not see Dumbledore's face when he finds his last hope die, and bearing my brand if he survives my Death Eaters, of course. They are quite anxious for his blood. Harry's mind raced. He had assumed Voldemort would want him to kill him quickly after marking him, but he had hoped for enough time to finish his plan. "My lord!" someone called through the doorway, and a masked-robed form entered to quickly prostrate itself before Voldemort. What is it? Voldemort screamed, his wand hand pointing at the intruder. Harry knew from the experience that the man would pay for interrupting him, regardless of why. "We're under attack, sir, the Order of the Phoenix!" While the Death Eater spoke, Harry wasted no time. Reaching inside his robes, he found his other wand, the gift from Severus he had at first been so disappointed with. He had moved it from his wrist, and instead of strapping it to his side along with his rib cage to hide it better in a search. Wand in hand, he peeled the sleeve away from where it had stuck to the open wound of the dark mark and muttered the unbinding spell. The pain in his arm was bad, but nothing like during the marking. His scar, though, burned as bad as it ever had. Harry prayed that his guess was right. He hated his hated link to Voldemort would protect him from what he had just done rather than kill him like the regular Death Eater. More importantly, he hoped the magic would use the scar and the mark to find the other linked ruins in the arms of other Death Eaters. It was a huge gamble, but ruins bound and controlled, and perhaps they were all bound through Harry connection to the Dark Lord. If they had then all of this would be for nothing. Not far away, the unknown Death Eater gasped and gripped his forearm. "I'm sorry, my lord." Harry's heart jumped as he wondered if the pain was coming from what he had just done or some punishment Voldemort was putting through him. Show me your mark," Voldemort demanded, his voice so calm to indicate he hadn't any idea that Harry had just done. If the order wishes a battle, we shall have one. Let them face the full strength of my force. We end this tonight." The Death Eater knelt and presented his arm, pulling his sleeve back up. His arms was still shaking from fear. Voldemort grabbed the man's wrist and yanked it up, twisting the arm in ways Harry knew that had to be painful. Light flared from the tip of Voldemort's wand as he stared at the man's forearm. "What have you done?" Voldemort turned on Harry. How have you done this?" He shoved the man's arm at Harry, dragging the rest of the Death Eater along. Without his glasses, Harry could not see enough to tell if the dark mark was gone or not. But Voldemort had already given enough of an answer. "Crucio!" Harry screamed as the curse hit him. His back arched as his whole body tensed under the pain. It only lasted a few moments before the Dark Lord broke the spell, his attention turning back again to the door. "Wormtail!" Voldemort began as something too small and distant for Harry to identify sailed through the air. It hit Voldemort before he could raise his wand. It seemed to have no effect. A wave of odor assaulted Harry, causing him to cough and his eyes to water, like a mix of rotten eggs and burning plastic. The toxic fume caused from the chaotic fumes caused both Harry and the Death Eater beside him to retch. Voldemort raised his wand hand as recognition came to Harry. He knew that smell. It was one of many Severus had forced them to learn. Smells of the potions that were on their belt. In a single movement, Harry stood and swung his wand at Voldemort. "Incendio!" he called out. A ball of flame struck Voldemort just a moment before a second ball of fire erupted from the doorway. Harry pushed all the magic he could find in himself into a stream of fire, and that engulfed the Dark Lord. Harry's screams joined Voldemort as the flames coursed over him. Harry was jostled awake. He was being carried at a run. Though he had no idea where he was or where he was going, his eyes now open, he could see the blur of a robe covering one of the arms holding him. Beyond that, everything was dark. Harry had no idea if they were still inside or even who he was holding. Who was holding him. He wondered if he was better off struggling or pretending to still be unconscious. "It's okay, Harry." A voice still roughly between even breaths. "It's over." Though the words were right, Harry did not recognize the voice of the speaker and started to struggle to free him. "Damn it, Harry! I've got you! I'm not giving you up. So stop fighting." "Who are you?" Harry demanded, still trying to free his arm, his legs kicking out weakly. He had no energy left to fight, but that had never stopped him before, nor did the pain throbbing in his left arm. "Who do you think it is? Miss Granger just isn't the only one who can make Polyjuice Potion, you idiot." "Severus?" Harry asked, his voice wavering, losing what little force he had been able to put into it. The man holding him stopped running. "Of course," came the soft reply. "I can walk," Harry said. "Maybe even run if I need to." Severus lowered Harry's legs and supported him while he stood up. "Good," Severus added. Harry had a hard time connecting the scratchy nasal voice with Severus. I should have a nasally voice like this. Okay, I'm going to do it. I'm going to breathe. It's going to sound like this now because it's a nasally voice. I should have picked someone stronger. It's not a... Oh, wait, it's Wormtail, isn't it? Okay, so I know what I did for Wormtail. I did this. So we're going to do this, okay? I should have picked someone stronger. It's not fair. It's not fair to the others. The man who was Severus, but looked like Wormtail, pointed out, and Harry could see a dim light further on. We're still in his dungeon. The Order is unsure how many Death Eaters are in here now, so we are taking no chances. Neville, Ron, and Hermione should be guarding our escape, while Albus and the others took the offense. We're leaving immediately, and we'll leave the rest to the Order. Okay, Harry said, gripping the man's robes. I can't see anything, though. You'll protect me if they're fighting. It was neither a question nor a command, simply a statement. Severus took Harry's arm and led him through the hallway. If anyone was fighting, they were doing it quietly. Severus left Harry a few steps behind as he peered through the doorway, then quickly back to retrieve him. Harry! Ron shouted as they stepped into a room. Harry could see a red-topped blur running for them before he was swept into a bear hug. It worked! You're brilliant! Ron? Hermione called. Put him down! Harry! Snape? What about you-know-who? On hearing her words, Harry realized he had never asked Severus whether it was a victory or not, or an escape. Dead, Severus replied confidently. Nothing left but bones and ash. Bone and ash, you say? Bone and ash, you say, huh? A voice Harry identified as Dumbledore asked from the dark corridor. Where are these bones? Severus pointed back to the hallway. You will see. You will want to make sure they are indeed his, and that there is no chance of his having survived. Quite right, Dumbledore replied. Severus, Ron, Hermione, Neville, and Neville, take Harry back to Hogwarts and have Poppy check him over. He pulled Harry into a hug. Good job, my boy. Albus, Severus interrupted. What about Harry? He pointed down to the dark blur on the corner. Harry could not make it out. Ah, Dumbledore replied. Well, it seems to me that's Mr. Longbottom's decision. We'll discuss it back at the castle. For now, though, Harry's the priority. Agreed. Severus walked Harry walked Harry out of the room and into another, explaining that the building and area was warded against portkeys and apparating. For the last time as the students at Hogwarts, Harry woke up in the infirmary with his friends, anxiously waiting around him. Severus was noticeably absent, and Hermione explained that he had been there for some time, but left after announcing he needed to brew something that would not wait. While Severus was gone, Harry had everyone tell their story. He found out, to his amusement, that he had not encountered the first group of Death Eaters. Ginny and Luna had been in the greenhouse when the attack came, and Professor Sprout had led the students back to the Great Hall at the first sign of trouble. But when the three Death Eaters had intercepted the group, Ginny and Luna blasted them. Neville said he had stayed in the Great Hall during it all until Severus yelled for him to join them to get Harry. They made us stay behind, Luna added. When Professor Snape said you needed them, they made me, Ginny, and Ginny stay in the Great Hall. But that's okay. With most of the teachers and Aurors going to look for you, some had to make sure that there were no Death Eaters left. Her soft, lilting voice belied the courage and strength beneath her words. I'm surprised they let any of you come help me. They didn't really talk about it, Ron said. Snape said you needed help, and then he yelled out for us and Headmaster and the rest of the order to grab hold of the portkey. It happened so fast, Mom and Dad didn't even realize that was what was happening. Snape had them stay behind to help guard the rest of the students. Harry laughed. I bet he did it to bug your mum. I did it, Severus said, stepping around the curtain that separated Harry's bed from the rest of the room. Because your friends are trained for what we were going into, and your parents had not. Their parents, sorry. I have already told them as such. And my mom took that as an answer? Ron asked, eyes wide. Of course not. I'm never to be in the same room with you again, and I should be locked up for taking 3 children with me to face a horde of Death Eaters. What do you say to that? I agreed. It seemed simpler than arguing with her. Huh. I should try that, said Ron. With Ron pondering a new approach to his mother, Severus turned to Neville. Mr. Longbottom, a moment of your time. Neville nodded, looking as if he had expected to be summoned. They stepped across the room, too far for Harry to hear, but just within sight they spoke for several seconds. Neville nodded once and held his face in his hands as he began to cry. Severus reached out a hand awkwardly to touch Neville's shoulder. Madame Pomfrey rushed into view and hugged the boy. With a glare, she shooed the relieved-looking potion master away. From where he was in the bed facing out, Harry was the only one to see what happened. Severus returned to him, sweeping his robes around the friends huddled around Harry, and sat in the chair at Harry's side. which Severus came a faint scent of one familiar to Harry, though he could not place it. Whatever it was, it seemed pleasant. Luna sniffed at the air, then leaned closer to Potion Master, testing the air. "Oh my," Luna said. "Bellatrix is a squib now, isn't she?" Harry was perplexed, and Severus glared at the girl. "What makes you say that?" He asked her. "Chocolate and hazelnut," she replied. "Nutella?" Harry asked. Everyone but Hermione looked at him like he was speaking gibberish. "I guess wizards don't eat Nutella," he said lamely. "It was squink smells of squib drink. It's a very rare potion. My father says no one alive is skilled enough to make it." "Oh, wait. It's what squink smells of squib drink. It's a very rare potion. My father says no one alive is skilled enough to make it." "For once your father is wrong," Severus said, not unkindly. It's both difficult and dangerous to make, and must be administered within moments of brewing it. It loses all effectiveness if not. Which is why I suspect the Dark Lord never took up my invitation to stay in my workroom when I was brewing for him. Anyway, with Lestrange already in the dungeons, he let the sentence end itself. As Mr. Longbottom saw earlier today, she has driven herself madder than she had driven his parents. Once the mark faded and the Dark Lord's death apparent, her insanity took a more ferocious turn. I suspect he will not want to discuss it, but you all have a right to know. He asked that she be kept alive, as death is a mercy she does not deserve. I have simply made sure she cannot do more harm." "Sounds like justice to me," Harry observed, pitying Death Eaters who enjoyed what they did in Voldemort's name. As was hard enough for him. He could find no compassion at all for the woman who had tortured his friend's parents and killed Sirius. After Harry's friends left, Severus sat on the side of Harry's bed, holding Harry's hand in his own while he checked him for every spell he could think of. "I'm fine, Severus. Really. I think I wasn't there very long. And he only cast Legamens and Crucio at me. Well, that and the spells from the Dark Mark. For the record, it is worse than he casts it on someone who's marked." Harry's eyes shot open wide as he remembered the mark. "Is it gone?" He pulled his hand free of Severus and pushed back his sleeve back. Wincing in pain, he realized that, regardless of the magic involved, his arm had still been burned and branded. His flesh of his forearm was blackened and peeling, though the healing potion Pomfrey had given him had begun to repair the worst of the damage. Harry looked over at Severus and saw the flash of sorrow in his eyes in the briefest moment. "Severus?" Harry asked softly. "The mark? I know what I did worked, but is it gone?" Severus folded his arms in front of him and simply shook his head. "It is faded, but it remains." "May I see it?" The question was unfair. He knew it. Severus would want to spare Harry from his failure, but he would not refuse. Severus slipped his sleeve up just far enough for Harry to make out the faded outline of part of the mark. It was certainly far less noticeable than it had been even the day before, but it was still there. Harry sighed. "I'm sorry, Severus. I promised to get that off you, but I couldn't." Severus stared at him for a moment. His eyebrows lifted, disdainful. Then he sighed. "I'm in love with an idiot." Harry felt the warmth blooming up his neck and face. "You are?" he whispered. Severus cupped his face gently in one hand. "Quiet." Harry struggled to sit up to kiss Severus, but his robes and the blankets conspired against him. Luckily, Severus leaned down to spare him the effort and captured his lips with his own. "I love you too, Severus." Sorry. Oh man, sorry. Ear alert. Okay. And I regret to inform you that this story has finished. And if you have other Snarry stories that you want me to read, comment down below or contact me on my Wattpad, which is down below too. And tomorrow I'm going to be finishing the Dreary Fanfiction, so we're going to be starting new Dreary and new Snarry. And I might do a little bit more of Tamari because I, at one point, read a Tamari story and it has, what is it? Been added on to to part 12, and I think I already read part 6. Wait, what happened? Whoop, my stomach. Okay. Oh, wait, did they add more to the Blaze story? Hold on. Please tell me they added more. I really like this story. Wait, they marked it as complete? How many parts did I read of that? I need to read that. So we're going to be reading these gay boys, Blaze X Ron, because that's the one I wanted to read. I'm going to be reading that again. And I'm going to see how many parts I already have read. Damn it, that's not what I wanted to do. Anyway, that's what I wanted to read. Okay, so thank you guys for watching. It's been 2 hours and 8 minutes. This is one of the longest videos I've ever recorded, and it was from the other series, the Dreary series, that was the longest. But thank you guys for watching. I really enjoyed this one. Be happy, be healthy, and always be loving. I have some tips for you. If you ever want to go to college, just put faith in yourself. And if you don't have very good friends that are very negative, drop them like a bad habit. That's what I did. That's why you don't see a couple of friends that are on my channel now. I had to drop them like a bad habit, and I just talked to them in passing. And I gained new friends, like Luna. We weren't very good friends in the beginning of high school. But now we're great friends. We tell each other everything. So that's why I wanted to give you a daily dose of wisdom, and that's it. Okay, I absolutely love you guys. Thank you. What number are we at right now? Right now, this second, what number are we at? At 12:41 on May 24th, 2021, I'm at 1.8. I'm at 1,884 subscribers because of you. Thank you. To new subscribers in the future, like way in the future, like a couple of years, because a lot of people go back to my old videos. Sometimes I cringe because I watch my old videos and I'm like, oh, who is this woman? But thank you guys for watching. I love you guys so much. Bye-bye. Be happy, be healthy, and always be loving.